My name is Nancy Kepple. I am one of the faculty here at the KU School of Social Welfare. We are in uncertain times, and what that means that there's a lot of unknowns. And as much as I wish I could look into a magic ball and tell you what was going to happen and how things were going to happen, I don't know. But the one thing that my social work education has taught me is how to sit with discomfort and how to plan for the unknown. And so while I can tell you that I equally feel uncertain about the future and that I am equally curious to see what will happen at the end of the day, that what I can do and what's in my control is to plan for the future effectively. And so an example of that here at the School of Social Welfare is how we're trying to deal with the unknowns around your education. Many people have asked us what's going to happen, expressed concern that they might not have the experience that they were anticipating. And the reality is no experience is ever exactly what we predict or plan, but what I can guarantee to you that the magic that might happen in a traditional classroom where we're all meeting in person doesn't get lost as it gets translated into a hybrid format or to an online format. So what I wanted to talk with you all today is how do I think about translating a class that typically looks like this, which is our Intro to Social Work course for our undergraduate students. It's probably our only really large lecture hall experience, but it's one of those experiences that sometimes can be even more difficult to transition to an online format. And really gain the same experience of being surrounded by other people and engaging and talking with them and having like the instructor up front talking about interesting things and bringing guest speakers and having that same experience when you're just sitting with a laptop. So here's the deal. In a traditional classroom that's like Social Work 220, which is our large intro course to social work, one of the highlights of the course is that individuals feel like they're exposed to a broad range of ideas that help them to understand just how much social work can do and what social welfare is and what all these different things that they know about and are familiar with, like how they all connect to this profession that is social work. Another thing that students talk about loving is that they love being able to sit and talk with other students who are interested in the same things that they're interested in, that are equally passionate about human rights and human welfare or social justice or other types of like forms of economic and racial justice. And we didn't want to lose that. So when we think about translating this in-classroom experience full of tons of people, I had to think about, well, how do I convey the same thing? How do I give you the same learning experience? How do I still cover the breadth of information that allows you to think about social work and social welfare in a new way? But more importantly, how do I give you an ability to connect with other people who are interested in that same type of information? How do we as instructors give you that same experience where you feel like you got both the interaction you needed, the content you needed, an ability to connect with the instructor and learn from us as needed, or whether social work might be a good profession for you? So I want you to see a couple of things that I've done. So when I think about this intro course, and this is an example of one of many classes that I've problem solved around, I've worked with colleagues to problem solve around, and other colleagues also are trying to make sure that we have this type of thinking where we can teach any course in any modality at any time. And we are making sure that we're putting in efforts to be fully prepared before the semester starts. That way, regardless of the fact that we can't predict the future, we have a plan for no matter which direction it might go. So that being said, let's look at Blackboard. So Blackboard is a platform that KU uses if you're not familiar with it yet. And it allows us to provide you with weekly announcements to engage you over the internet. Even if we were working in person, we'd still be having a classroom for Blackboard. And so what I've done is taken a traditional class that we usually meet twice a week for about an hour and 15 minutes for each class, so about 2.5 hours a week. And I've translated into every week you just complete one module. So the online or the asynchronous component is a module that takes you through different ideas. So we learn in the first week just what is social welfare and what is social work and what are the differences. And these are key components to understanding both our profession and the field of practice we work in. It gives you an overview of what we'll be doing. More importantly, reminding you to read because you will be tested on the information. And the way I structure course, and I always say this to everybody, is if I was going to come and reiterate the book to you, you might as well not take the class. And so everything that is built in the online modules or built in the classroom is to learn above and beyond what you could get from a basic textbook. Because what's the point of showing up and doing the extra work if it's just reiterating things you could have read yourself? Which means that you get lovely lectures that were designed by myself. And so an example, for instance, is it's embedded inside. Welcome to your first online learning module. In this lecture, you will be introduced to social work as a profession and also how we distinguish it from this concept of social welfare. So this would be no different and probably a little bit better than some of the lectures that I would give inside a class, followed by a comprehension quiz that's usually about somewhere between 9 to 11 multiple choice, true, false, and matching questions to make sure that you have the key concepts of the reading that I wanted to highlight or key concepts from the lecture. And it helps me know that you've understood the information that was conveyed. But more importantly, it's really actually given in lieu of a mid-semester section exam and a final exam, which means that you're taking weekly module quizzes to demonstrate your comprehension, and you don't have to have a sit-down midterm and a sit-down final. So in some ways, this is kind of better. There are other types of lectures, and more importantly, when we learn, often there's some type of applied activity. And through that applied activity, you're able to do things like go through case vignettes, dialogue with other students in discussion boards, do social media searches, and understand like the social dialogues that are occurring around some of the controversial topics we're talking about. So this is just a really quick example of what we consider an online learning module. The second component is what we call a volunteer project, which is actually a service learning project. One concern students talk about is, well, if I have to volunteer and I'm not sure what's going on, how do we deal with that? We've modified the approach so that you can volunteer online. You can choose to work in agencies if you feel that it's safe and accessible to you. A variety of different options that the instructors work with you around and consult with you through a staged, what we call scaffolded process, which supports you through the process to make sure that you get the 20 hours of volunteer service that's required for this course. So what's really awesome about it is that you don't actually lose any of the experiences or content that you would get from the course. The one aspect that people are worried about, though, is that one of their favorite parts of the course, besides learning about all the different ways that you can be a social worker, is that people love talking to other students who are interested in the same things that they're interested in. They like learning about whether or not social work might be a good fit for them. And they like the energy of interacting with instructors, both myself and other instructors that teach this course. And so one of the third pieces that we made sure to embed inside of this course is that every week there's a short 45-minute synchronous element where the instructor brings in a current event, introduces the event, allows you to go into like different breakout groups. In some ways, the technology allows us to facilitate better small group discussions than we'd be able to do in a large lecture hall, and then brings us all back together for a class-wide discussion so that everybody knows what these big takeaways come from. What's really awesome about this particular format and the way that the modality is structured is since we were able to streamline the online content in a specific way, it gives space to bring in and have dialogue around how social work is showing up in current events. And we have strategies to have difficult conversations in safe ways, because a part of social work is learning how to have those difficult conversations. This is just one example of many classes that I'm personally transitioning, along with all the other classes that my colleagues and I are working together to transition. And so the one thing I can guarantee for you in these uncertain times is that the faculty here is thinking proactively, and we're putting on our social worker hats, and we're creatively problem solving before it's too late. We have very effectively planned for a variety of different options to make sure that your education isn't compromised no matter what happens. So trust that we're preparing, and trust that we have your best interest in mind, because at the end of the day, you are the future of social work, and many of us deeply, deeply care about your education, your individual well-being as human beings, and that you have the best experience possible no matter what.